Hello, everybody. Production value, huh? What do you think? What do you think? Uh, for those of you who don't know, I've got a bunch of people in the house, friendly names, familiar faces. Thanks so much. My nephew is in the house. Say hello to Miraculous Silver Slipper, who is going to be asking me technical questions about my live stream for the next hour. That's cool. Hello to, let's see, we've got Biking Brian. You might be making an appearance in the top 10, sir. I'm just going to throw that out there. I see Kimberly, of course, my lovely partner. Her mother is in the house. We've got it's a great Byron from Australia. We've clearly got an international gathering here. We've got my neighbor across the way here. We've got Preston Piper, the Triple P man himself. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. It's a special celebration. I mean, it is 10 years of the Pedalshift project, and I thought we would celebrate by doing a live show. I haven't been doing enough of these, so I'll try to do more of them, but for sure today. I even brought out my special Wookiee mug, so we know it's a special party, so hold on, because we know I don't get to drink anything. Sorry, lightsabers make it hard to actually drink. There we go. Here's how it's going to go tonight. We are going to make sure that we keep the conversation going in the chat box. You feel free to have that going. They tend to, the chat boxes that is, tend to have a robust dialogue all throughout the live shows. So make sure you continue to do that. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to highlight folks as we go along here. Dave says, congrats on 10 years. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm actually learning how to use StreamYard, which is really fantastic. For those of you who are on the podcast side of things, who are listening to this, of course, this is not live for you, but for everybody else, it is. So it's pretty exciting. We've got Mark Van Ram in the house, an alum from episode 090. And yes, we are going to be talking about leading zeros a couple of times in this particular episode. That is for sure. And we are excited to celebrate things. Tonight, we are going to be celebrating our top 10 moments as determined by yours truly. I think I've changed my mind a million times on these already. So they're my top 10 for me here tonight. Also, I know I'm leaving out a bunch of really great moments. I try to get a nice cross section of things, but because it's my show, I'm smuggling in an honorary top 10 as well. So we'll be going through those. And then of course we're going to be going through the summer 10th anniversary tour reveal. It's a kind of a thing that we do in the live show where I let you know what my next tour is going to be. This is a special one. I'm very excited for it. I've given a few hints on the email. If you have not, if you are not privy to that, that means you're not subscribed to the email. Make sure you do that. Some folks I've actually biked with. My good pal Greg Middlemiss, listening to 6 of the 10 years, and has actually met up with me randomly on a couple of occasions. I think Greg was first the Katy Trails where we first met up. That might make an appearance in some of the top 10s. So yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff. Dave says congrats on 10 years. And Biking Brian, of course, we already said hello to that. All right. Okay. So keep it coming in the chat box. I'll try to highlight some folks as we go along here. So why don't we just get cracking? Maybe I'll read the intro like I do, like for a normal podcast. So the Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments on bicycle tour adventures, from tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/366, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net. Or you can text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. So for this episode, we are going to be celebrating 10 years. I put out that video that you saw as we opened things up. If you caught it, if you were a couple minutes early, that was scrolling through all 365 existing episodes, plus all of the best ofs. And it took a long time. It took longer than 2 minutes to scroll through them. So I had to kind of speed it up in the editing process. And that's pretty wild to me because and I've said this before, when I first started the show, I liked podcasting. I loved bike touring. And at the time, there were no bicycle touring podcasts. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm pretty new at this, but why don't I just kind of document some of my experiences? And then I got the hubris to think that I could talk about other things as well. And if you remember early on in the show, I was talking about pedalpreneur and what we could do to kind of have entrepreneurial vibes to try to allow ourselves to do some more bike touring. And that certainly helped me early in the time. And then the show evolved, as so many of you know. At the outset of the show, the tour journals were a completely separate thing. And now I've integrated them mostly into the show. And that has been very helpful from a production perspective, because when I decided to go weekly, it gets hard over the course of 10 years to talk about a fairly niche thing every single week. So doing the tour journals as a part of the pod definitely has been a helpful kind of a thing. I'm already getting some suggestions here, Mark, saying, hey, how about some bicycle gear reviews? I'm utterly unqualified. I mean, I think, although I will say, I think that in the next, as we turn the corner into some e-biking, which I think, as I've talked about, is something that I'm planning on doing. I'm going to be maybe doing some reviews of the things that I'm trying on the e-bike, and thank goodness I did not do an entire podcast series on the e-bike situation. That would have been a daily show, I think, in terms of the amount of content, and also just the amount of wild rabbit holes that I kind of went down. It's been a really interesting thing. I'm going to be excited to share all of that with you, with where I think I'm going to be going down a particular path. We'll just put it that way. And so, yeah, we'll do all of that. So, all right, let's get cracking right here. We're going to do the top 10 moments, and let's see, we're going to add that to the stage. Okay. I'm going to keep my face on the screen just because why the heck not? And let's get going here. We're going to start with our honorable mentions. It's 10 years, so I've decided to smuggle in 10 honorable mentions. These did not make the cut, but I think that these were all important things that were part of the show for the last 10 years. And before I even get to that, I'm going to do some honorable mentions. Every single guest that has ever been on the show that does not make any of these things, it is not because you weren't valued or weren't remarkable or amazing and a huge part of the show. It is so wild how many people that I have talked to through the years, and every single one of those people have been helpful in making the show what it is. So I really want to say a big thank you to all of you who have ever been on the show. And we've got some folks in the room here who have actually been on the show, so thank you very much. Also a big shout out, because I realized, and I told her this before we went live here, I realized that Kimberly did not make the cut. It's not that she didn't make the cut. It's just that that particular episode did not make the honorable mention. And I feel like that is sort of like getting an award and not mentioning your partner at the beginning. When you get an award, that's out of bounds. So I'm going to give a special shout out to Kimberly and all of the support she's given through the years, especially being on the show back in the 076 range, if memory serves. So thank you very much for your contribution in so many ways, both substantive and in advisory role, shall we say. All right, so let's get rolling here. We're going to go through the honorable mentions. And number one honorable mention, by the way, these are in episodic order, as you would probably imagine. Honorable mention number one is the show that was almost exactly 10 years ago today. I think it was, oh no, it is June 8th. Holy smokes, June 8th, 2014. It's June 8th, 2024. So today, 10 years to the day, Pedalshift number one. And it was a very short show. As for those of you who have heard it, it is one of the most downloaded episodes of the show, probably because people are like, well, I'll start with number one. I regret that, because, and actually I said very little. I just sort of gave I don't know, the mission statement or something like that. I haven't listened to it in years. Maybe you have. The one thing that I'll mention about this particular episode is that, my design aesthetic. I am famously not a design person. I have designed websites. I've designed this website. I am not good with logos, as you probably all know. That was the original logo right there. Which is just hysterical to me. And the current one isn't much better. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I one of these days I'm going to fix that. I promise you all. One of these days I'm going to fix that. Anyways, honorable mention number one, of course, the first episode of the Pedalshift Project 10 years ago today. Can you believe that? Number 2 is episode 002. Yes, back in the day, folks, we did the leading zeros because I knew that at some point I was going to actually get to episode number 100. So I just kind of threw the hat over the wall, as MJ and I say. And of course, the second episode was with Brock Dittus, who has become just such a close friend over the years. And at that time, I was a big consumer of the Sprocket podcast. And I ended up doing that forever, including to this day. And the relationship that we had between the Sprocket podcast and the Pedalshift project, of course, is sort of legendary. And you're going to hear more about the Sprocket podcast throughout these best ofs and the top tens here. That is for sure. But Brock has been, I think, of any person other than myself, has been on the Pedalshift project more than any other person, and has just been great. He does great stuff and is missed on the regular podcast circuit. We'll just say that. Speaking of the Sprocket podcast, episode 004 was the very first crossover edition of the Sprocket podcast and the Pedalshift project. And of course, that was also Aaron Flores' first time on the show. Of course, Aaron and I go way back. Also, somebody who I love to call a friend as well. And we had a fun time in that crossover. Go check those out if you haven't already. Another one of my favorites, and this gets into, I think, a piece of what I have tried to make this show be over the years. And this is episode 013, The New Woman Bikes the World. This, of course, was with, and I'm going to have to I have to look at her name every time, Jillian Klempner-Willman, who was the filmmaker for a documentary called The New Woman. And this was about Annie Londonderry and her ride around the world. And I think it's very timely because, of course, I hope all of you are listening to the fabulous podcast with Lael Wilcox as she's trying to break the record of going around the world. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, barring something crazy happening, there's no doubt in my mind that she's going to break that record. But here's the thing that I wanted to mention here. I have always felt like that bicycle touring and bicycle travel, particularly the type that we do, is something that at the time felt like it was a lot of white dudes, right? A lot of people who looked like me. And my goal for the show was to try to make sure that I highlighted and uplifted folks that don't look like me. And that was one of the beginning episodes of all of that. It's also kind of a fun story. Annie Londonderry was such a fascinating person. And of course, the history of the bicycle is really tied into the women's rights movement of that era. And so all of that was really fascinating to me. And I was so glad that I was able to bring that story to us super, super early on there. Oh, it's going back here, I want to add something. Dale says, thanks for introducing me to the Sprocket podcast. Hey, look, the Sprocket podcast was something that I think uplifted this show. And I think we uplifted each other through the last 10 years. And just such a special relationship that we had over this time. So yeah, no problem, Dale. I wanted more people to hear both podcasts for that. That's for sure. All right, back to our honorary mentions. Let's see, where are we in next? Let's see, we just did The New Woman. All right, episode 044. Of course, it's episode 44, right? This taps into a couple of things. First of all, this was the bike touring music episode with the Sprocket podcast, continuing down the line of having the special relationship that we had. But episode 44, of course, gets into the whole Syracuse aspect of this podcast and how the color scheme was about my alma mater, Syracuse University. And of course, 44 is a big number in the sports ball of Syracuse University. So of course, episode 044 is going to make the cut. But that was a super fun episode where we cobbled together a bike touring list based on a bunch of different categories. One of my favorite episodes, one of my favorite times spent with friends from the Sprocket podcast, where we built all of that. I believe that playlist exists someplace. If it's not on Spotify, let me know, because I definitely need to get that up there. Fun. I have played that playlist on more than one occasion, particularly the climbing selections from the three of us. Those are very handy songs to have there. Episode 056, a long-term friend, Kat from the Joyride, Kat Caparello Snyder. And I just saw poor Kat had a problem recently. If you follow Kat on, I believe it was on Instagram, Kat says that Kat lives in North Portland now, and Kat was blocked from being able to get to work because there was a train blocking the surface roads in, of all places, the land of sunshine and bunnies. People, I mean, come on. And had a very funny Instagram story, which was probably, it's funny in retrospect, probably not so funny in the moment. But Kat was great on the show. Kat is missed in the podcasting space. I really loved the Joyride, and I loved highlighting that show. So shout out to Kat and everything going on there. Kat's doing great. I like I said, I love that I've continued some kind of a relationship with a lot of folks, even after the podcasting stuff has sort of gone to the wayside, right? Episode 063. This one was really special, and this is one that gets recycled in the best ofs a lot. And that was my Thanksgiving Day ride on the C&O. And I just remember that that was one of my first sort of stream of consciousness types of podcasts, where I had the microphone on with me riding the bike and just talking about why I was really thankful for what bicycle touring had brought to me. Of course, this was in 2016. So much more has happened since all of that. But yeah, it was a great episode, and it's worth a listen every single Thanksgiving. If you ever get a chance, go check that out. It's episode 063 of the pod. All right, we have 3 more in our honorary mentions. So again, we're not even in the top 10. All right. A person who I just adored was on the show twice. This was her first time on the show. This was Jasmine Reese. And you remember Jasmine had her dog Fiji, and they were looking to bicycle around the world. I'm not sure if they did the full around the world, but they did tons of adventures together. The whole thing about the vagabond life was the first episode. And Jasmine ended up switching to a recumbent when it was a part of the second episode. But episode 069 was her first time on the show. If you haven't heard that episode, the relentless if you think I am a positive person, I am a relentlessly negative person compared to Jasmine Reese. Jasmine is absolutely fantastic, and what great listening. Both of those episodes really it should have been in the top 10, but honorable mention it will be. More Sprocket podcast love here. Guthrie Straw. This was his first solo episode on the show. Of course, he had appeared at least a couple of times prior to this, but this is episode 071, where he talked about his cycle touring in India, and also growing up in Eastern Oregon. The lessons learned from all of that. Really great stuff. Guthrie, of course, is another great friend as well over the years. And last but not least, out of the honorary mentions, I have to give a shout out to the bike, the Green Goblin itself, the Green Goblin retirement tour. The Goblin lives here at the cabin here in West Virginia. It is now more of a trainer. And unfortunately, I just look at that bike all the time and I go, you know what? You deserve better than this. So this was the retirement tour, but like so many retirements, don't count out the Green Goblin. He might come back at one of these points. That was such a fun tour that started out of my brother's garage, where the Goblin had lived for years, and ended up riding all the way down to Medford, Oregon, I think. And then we ended up flying home together, and has lived out here ever since. So you just never know. So that's it for the honorable mentions. A couple of things that have popped up here. Bike vids. A fair amount of pop punk in episode 044. Absolutely. There was that came a lot from, I think Brock was more on the pop side. Aaron was more on the punk side, but got a little on the pop punk. And of course, I love I love punk that it has melody, which is of course why Nirvana is one of my favorites. But yeah, that episode 44 was really great. And yeah, and let's see here. Jeremy says, miss the Sprocket podcast. It is still around. It's not as frequent as it used to be. They are doing, or have done, they are doing a ride as part of the June. I'm absolutely spacing Portland people. I'm absolutely losing my mind here. The summer thing in Portland, where there's lots of bikes involved, where you do different group rides. That is going to be something that's going to be done again. There's another podcast based one, and Sprocket is going to be doing that. And everyone is going to get together, including Brock will be there for it. Sadly, I am going to be in California. I'll be on the West Coast, but it's just not in the cards for me to be able to join in all of that. Pedalpalooza. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Yes, Pedalpalooza ride. Check it out. It's on the shift list, and join up for that, because that, of course, is going to be a great reunion there. All right. So there are your honorable mentions. All bangers of an episode, except for maybe episode 1, which is, I think, like 6 minutes long, but you got to say it. Yeah. On the 10th anniversary episode, we got to give it a shout out. All right. Here we're going to go with the top 10 again. You know, will I change my mind on these? Absolutely. I do think that this is good. I think I got a nice, good mix. I feel like after having done the honorable mentions, now I feel a little bit better about the top 10, because I think sometimes when you do a top 10, you're going, oh, but I'm missing all of these other things. So that's why I did 10 honorable mentions. I smuggled in an additional 10. So now I feel a little bit better about how this is all going here. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Number 10, episode 200, and actually more than that, social distancing on the C&O. I'm going to give that as the avatar. It was, by the way, episodes 200 to 203. That's also going to include, I think, what we did together on this podcast through COVID. The that was a wild time. I mean, is that an understatement? Yeah, sure. But I think that when that really hit, and this tour was in April. I remember this really hit. COVID hit in March, and the fact that within 1 month, with all of the unknowns and all of the things that we just had no idea how we were going to deal with. I had been out of the office for a full month at that point. But if there was one thing that we were learning, even though we had a lot still to learn about COVID, being outside was going to be something that was going to be okay. And being outside away from people, well, you know what? That was definitely a thing. And on that particular ride, I didn't encounter a single person on that entire ride. And it was something that was really helpful for me personally, as somebody who kind of wanted to continue the podcast, who wanted to continue to be able to ride. Uh, that was really important to me. And I learned just by hearing from all of you that by continuing the show all the way through COVID, that was helpful for all of you as well. And I'm just really grateful for the fact that cycling and cycling someplace cool and being outdoors was a real boon and something that we could still do. Now, maybe we couldn't hop on planes or trains or things like that quite as easily, but I was able to do a lot more of the local riding over the course of that year to 18 months or so. And certainly the CNO was part of it. And so, yeah, that gets to be number 10, the social distancing ride, and indeed all of the episodes all the way through COVID. That's moment number 10 on our top 10 moments in the last 10 years. Number 9, the Katy Trail. So that's going to be episodes number 118 to 126 in May through June of 2018. This is a trail that I just really, really liked. I didn't know much about Missouri. I'd been to Missouri before. I talk a little bit about it on those episodes. But as I have frequently said, you really get to know a state if you can cross it by bike. And Missouri is an enormous state. By the way, in May and June, it is enormously hot as well. So that was a really, really epic trip. And it's definitely a route that I would like to get to more frequently. I would love to get there again. I love that I did the train element of the whole thing. That was a really fun and helpful thing. That also was the one big trip that I was able to document on video too. So check out those video episodes as well. I wish I had the time to do that kind of stuff now. I just don't. And I took all of this video in Florida from earlier this year with the intention by now for sure to get that out. And I haven't even touched it yet. So it's a good reminder that, if I'm going to do something, it's going to typically be audio. I'll throw in some of these live shows as well, but I like staying in my lane is probably pretty good. I loved the video though. I look forward to looking back on a lot of that kind of stuff because these are my personal journals as much as they are podcasts as well. So being able to do some more video would be really fantastic. And I would really like that as well. Byron comes in. Pedalpalooza has the shortest night ride soon, and he's planning a winter solstice ride in southern Australia. That is fantastic. I really like that. The kind of flip that we have with the southern hemisphere, and Byron, you're always so great to share things with us here while you're going through your winter and we're kind of having our fun in the summer. I always appreciate that. I hope you can get at least enough daylight to get in a good proper ride down there. That's pretty great. All right, so we're through number 9 on our top 10 list. Let's go into number 8. And that is Biking Brian. Get a bow here, sir. You made the top 10, and you're the most recent of the episodes here. Episode 345, e-bike adventures with Biking Brian. So, Brian, since you're here, and I can thank you personally, you are a real inspiration to me with what you built with that really cool build of yours, and I think it's a good way to mention that the way that people can put your stuff out there, how that can have an influence on people. And it certainly has influenced me because I'm just really excited based on all of the stuff that Brian has shared about kind of integrating an e-bike, not for everything that I do. I'll always have the acoustic bike, of course, but I just love the idea of having an e-bike as something that can kind of make certain adventures happen a little bit more easily, or at least make certain things that were maybe a little bit out of my reach more accessible. And so honestly, it's not just that discussion on episode 345, as great as that was, but all the stuff that Brian's put out, that's just really fantastic. So yes, and it's Brian getting the woo. There you go, sir. Thank you so much for all of that. Yeah, and your fantastic battery making is absolutely a part of all of that as well. All right, let's see here. We are at episode. How I got to pull out my clearly I need another drink from the Wookiee mug. Let the Wookiee win, right? Okay, here we go. That was number 8. Let's go on to number 7. Number 7, the very first Brompton tour that I ever did. The bike was barely, I think, a month old from when I had gotten it. And I already was like, yeah, why don't I just take this up big, sir? So episode 048 was a part of it. That I think it was all in that, all pretty much self-contained in that. That might have been during the era back in 2016 when I was doing the bike tours. The tour journals were going to be in the standalones that we used to do, but now of course we've rolled that in. I'll have to double check to see if that's ever been in the main feed, because if it hasn't, that is a good fodder for a best of, for absolutely sure. That was also, I remember, two notable deaths happened during that. Not to bring this down, but Prince died in the middle of that tour, and so did Pearl Washington, Syracuse University basketball great. And I just remembered, both of those kind of hit me pretty hard, but Prince more than anything. Like, I know Kimberly and I have talked about, we got to see Prince live in DC years ago. And we had some of the worst seats in the entire place, but it didn't matter because that guy just sort of pulled you in. You may as well have been on the front row. And I just remember, I equate that trip and Prince. And every time I ride the Brompton, I think of him. I listen to a lot of his music sometimes when I'm riding that. So, losing him was really painful, but, at least there's good memories that kind of come out of it. And that trip was just epic. That picture that I took right there, I was using kind of the panoramic view, and the lighting on it is a little jacked up. I wish I had this phone, the new phone. I probably would have done a much better job with all of that. But the sweeping vistas of Big Sur are just so phenomenal, and it's just such a fragile place. And the fact that it's closed yet again, it seems to be an annual or every other year kind of a thing where that blocks the Pacific route. And I do hope that I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I've been able to bike through there on at least a couple of occasions, because you just never know. You never know. At some point, with the state of California just basically say, enough. We're not going to hug the coast the same way. We're going to divert Highway 1 into a different area and not really hit Big Sur in the same way. You just never know. So just to be able to have those memories and to have documented those on the pod, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Number 7 on the list. All right, we're up to, let's see, number 6. Okay. My guy had to make it on the top 10 list. And my guy is Shifty the Elf. Yes, the very first Pedal Shift Holiday Spectacular. So I'm going to say this is a shout to Shifty. This is a shout to the Holiday Spectacular. These are just so fun for me. I make most of the episodes for you, the listener. These are for me. I'm going to be perfectly honest, and I just love kind of having the references to the old school holiday specials. Some of them that are older than me. The most recent one, of course, was kind of like the old school. I don't know. I'm trying to think some of these like older. Oh, I'm losing the names of them, but where it would be sort of like these canned hackney things where it's just sort of like, oh, who's that knock on the door? And it's that thing for a holiday special, so they get their special guests that way. Of course, we get more Sprocket podcast references there. I love doing these. They are some of my favorite episodes to do. It's usually when I've got a little bit more time and I can put a little bit more production value into the podcast. And I just love putting them together. And number 6 just kind of maybe pulls them all in. And Shifty the Elf, of course, is producing the show in the back room, as of course you all really know. All right, let's see. That was number 6. I'm checking my list. Oh, here's a good one. The very first ride to Disney World. Now, this it may surprise some of you. Some of you may think, why not put all of the Florida rides in there? And to a certain extent, I can smuggle them into this one. But this was very special for me because this one was, can I pull this off? And this was, I think, a part of how I've leaned more into bicycle adventures rather than bike touring, because I feel like that bike touring is a piece of it. And obviously, I'll always be bike touring. But this was the kind of thing where it's sort of like, okay, I'm using a bike to do something unusual. And the unusual thing was riding a bicycle to a Disney resort. And if any of you have ever been there, you know that it's not exactly the greatest idea in the world, but I have managed to figure out a couple of different ways to reasonably safely ride into Disney property. And that was, that was kind of a fun thing. And honestly, something that I've obviously repeated and probably will continue to repeat just because it's kind of my happy place and I enjoy it. So it's a nice merger of a bunch of different things. So you take podcasting, right? You take your bicycle travel, and then you take Disney, smash them all together, and this is what you get. It makes the top 5. I really enjoyed that trip, and I've enjoyed every single one that I've done since then. Florida's been fun as a regular part of the rotation, and as you might guess, I do have, and I am starting to plan the 2025 Florida trip. So look for information on that in about 6 months. Number 4. Now we're starting to get into the big ones, the really truly special rides, and the DC to Cincinnati ride is probably amongst the most special for me. It was one of the longer rides that I did. This, of course, was, let's see, which episodes did we get? Episodes 165 to 169. They were broadcast, let's see, May to June of 2019. That ride was epic in so many ways. And the idea behind this one was, okay, I can ride the CNO, I can ride the Gap, and I can get to Pittsburgh. How do I connect Pittsburgh to the Ohio to Erie Trail? And I didn't do it with just bicycling, but I did it with bicycle and transit. And this, again, utilizing the fast forwards where it was appropriate, just was really, really fantastic. And what a fun ride, what a memorable ride. And it just, I now have a big chunk of the cross country and segments kind of handled. And, that's something that I'll keep in my back pocket for a real long time. I love the Ohio to Erie Trail. I think it's just a fun trail. It's another great way, by the way, to see a great state of Ohio. I have no relationship with the state of Ohio at all. In fact, if anything, half of my family is from Michigan. My brother went to the University of Michigan. So if there's anything, there's kind of a this with Ohio in my family. And to be able to get to know the state of Ohio the way that I was able to, that's why this makes number 4 on the list. I see, Dave, that 4 of you are doing the OTET next week. That's the Ohio to Erie Trail. Such a great trail. What a great time of year to do it. Hopefully you're not going to catch the humidity. Hopefully you're going to get some good weather down there. I just really enjoyed that ride. And it's such a great resource, such great infrastructure to have in your state, to have something like that, something like the Ohio to Erie Trail, something like the Empire State Trail in my home state of New York, things like that. Just really fantastic things. And returning to them time and again is something that's in the cards. I really need to get back there as well. Katy Trail in Missouri, Ohio to Erie Trail, 100%. Got to get back there. Okay. Number 4 was that. Number 3. Number 3. Now, here's a fun one. This was the Pedalshift bicycle touring draft. This was not the first one. The first one we're going to talk about in a moment here. But the subsequent one, this was the first one that I did with the Sprocket podcast. This was, I have to say, after looking at all the various conversations I had with everyone involved in the Sprocket and all of its iterations, this was one of my favorite times when we were able to pull this together. If you're not familiar with the bicycle touring draft, 4 of us in this case got together, and each of us gets to draft certain elements of a bicycle touring trip. And then we ended up having the people vote on it. Who won? It was this guy, of course. Of course I won it, right? It's the only thing. I get a little too competitive in these types of things. But that was so much fun. We've done subsequent ones since then. But I really enjoyed that because it was just a different way to, I don't know, gamify all of this, to have a good laugh, to see different strategies, just to understand again that bicycle touring can be a variety of different things. It doesn't have to be done just one way. If you remember way back in the day, Mysterious James and I used to joke that there was a uniform for bicycle touring. And so like you had your Surly and you had your Ortley back rollers. And to a certain extent, there is kind of a classic bicycle touring look. I think that the nice thing about the draft is that we came up with a variety of different ways that one could have some very good high-end tours, and then some very mediocre ones where you're naked and cold and dead in your tent with no sleeping bag, for instance. It was a lot of fun. And by the way, I do sometimes listen to past episodes. That one's in the rotation. That's really pretty fantastic. Seeing that Biking Brian's did the OTED again in May, absolutely, that is a fantastic trail. Brian, I'm hoping that might make your channel. I would love to see your take on that, especially if you use the e-bike. That would be pretty cool. And let's see, what do we got here? Also, Misha. This is Misha LeBlanc. It's Misha DeBear. So converting 2 of my bikes to mid drives, and we're getting to the tech elements of all of that, which that's fantastic. That all looks really good. That is part of some of the numbers that I'm swimming in. The voltage 24 amp hour battery, fantastic. A 500 watt mid drive, fantastic. That means nothing to a lot of people, but it means a lot to me. So thank you for sharing all of that, Misha. All right, so we're up to number 3. That was our bronze medal there, the second bicycle touring draft. All right, so the next 2, I'm curious. Nobody has guessed in any of these. I'm curious if anybody has any guesses as to what the top 2 are. To me, I feel like it's almost assured to me that the number 1, I think, has always been number 1 for me. Number 2, it was only a few years ago, but resumed right up to number 2. I think that these were the 2 easiest ones in the top 10 to do. So, all right, number 2, my old friend Mysterious James. If you remember, this was literally weeks before COVID hit. James came here to the cabin, and we started pouring some drinks. And we enjoyed some drinks, and we did not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive episodes. It was the last time that he was really on the show. But we had a whole conversation about a decade of bike touring, and hysterically, I kind of jumped the gun. I guess. Oh no, that's not true. I've been cycling. We had been bicycle touring for 10 years at that point. The podcast it didn't come for another couple of years after that. But yeah, talking about our experience and what we learned and all of that. Clearly, I mean, that was a substantive pod. And then we had our kind of nonsense. And of course, the very first bike touring draft came out of all of that. And I just remember laughing so hard making that and just I couldn't wait to get that out on the podcast. It was just so much fun. And then what was it? Bicycle tour route full house. I don't even remember the rules on that. I would love to maybe try to get ChatGPT or some other AI to come up with some more interesting games, as it were, for these types of things because it's just a lot of fun. The draft has been a constant and it has been really, really fantastic. I just enjoy that episode. Those three episodes are just some of the core memories for me, not only for the podcast, but also for just hanging out with James, which we do mostly off mic. But on that one wonderful fine day, we turned on the microphones and we went for it. It was definitely part of it. Okay. All right. Let's see here. I'm just going to peek into the a lot of e-bike talk here. It looks like a lot of e-bike talk. Let's see. Byron saying that he converted his dad's mountain bike to a mid-drive. Simple conversion only took a few hours. Yeah, that's the excitement about doing a conversion. Just as Byron says, those kits are, if they fit your bottom bracket, they are pretty quick and easy to go on. You do need a bottom bracket removal tool. I'm probably saying that wrong because, as you know, I don't know the names of these things. But yeah, they go on pretty quick and easy, and then all of a sudden, boom, you've got an e-bike. Things get more complex from there as the discussion with Brian went. But yeah, lots of really exciting things happening around e-bikes. I'm also seeing if you're following on the e-bike subreddit, I think it is e-bikes if r slash e-bikes. There are a lot of crazy people. No judgment, but there are a lot of people who are trying to make these things go like 40, 50 miles per hour. And I'm just like, you do you, but stay off my paths, please. Good Lord. Really interesting stuff that people are trying to get away with. And of course, they are definitely going to hurt themselves, I think. Um, yeah. Okay. So let's see. That is it. That's number two. Does anybody have any guesses in the chat room? What my number? Okay. Well, I have my number one. I'm curious. What are your number ones, or do you have guesses as to what my number one is? Please feel free to throw that in the chat box. In the interim, I'm going to note that as soon as we get done with our top 10 here, I will be talking about our 10th anniversary tour reveal, which is in the books. It's set. It's ready to go. And as I'll be talking about in a moment here, we'll be ending up on the pod for the better part of the summer coming up. So that's pretty exciting. I don't know if there's lag in the chat box, but nobody has any guesses or they don't want to share what their top moment is. So I'm just going to get going here. Anything C&O from Preston. Preston, you're on brand, sir. That is for sure. That trail is, I feel like that for it being in my backyard, literally, that I sometimes don't appreciate it enough. And this last ride, of course, didn't turn out quite the way that I really wanted it to in so many different ways. But Sino is just always there for me, and it's just so fantastic to be able to just basically hop on my bike from either place where I spend my time, whether it's in DC or if it's here. Like I can get to that trail, and I can go in any direction, and just adventure awaits. And that is just something that I've been lucky to have in my life, both now, of course, but also as a kid with the Erie Canal Trail and now the Empire State Trail. So yeah, that's pretty fantastic. Byron also is. So let me give the shouts out here. So Preston says anything C&O, of course. Byron says yes, anything C&O. That's pretty good. Mark Spooner. Oops, that's a different one there. There we go. Mark, there we go with the beginner series. Yeah, that's pretty great. That's pretty great. The beginner series have been fun. I ended up, I haven't done one in years. I think I put out a call, I want to say a couple of years ago, and I didn't hear back from anybody. Might have just been happenstance. But I do wonder if the beginner series was kind of this one brief, cool, shining moment. We had great conversations with a few people, and maybe we answered all the questions in that. Maybe the beginner series stand for themselves, but I don't know. Who knows? If there's anybody else out there that's thinking you're a beginner, you found this dopey little show, and you would like to do beginner series style, please feel free to reach out. Always willing to do all of that. Okay, my number one. My number one is I don't think this should be surprising to anybody, but it's that the very first big one, the Pacific Coast. It's my longest ride. I documented it early on the podcast. In fact, in many ways, the podcast started anticipating this big ride. It was in the summer of 2014, so we're very close to the 10th anniversary of all of that. And episodes 005, 006 were sort of check-ins for that particular ride. This, of course, was when the pod, I think, was every other week. And if memory serves, the release of the episodes coincided with breaks that I had. And so that ended up working out. The first episode of 005, I was taking a few days in San Francisco and was able to record all about what had happened. And of course, I did a tour journal prior to all of that. After I put out 006, which was at the end of the tour, then we backfilled it all. And episode 010 was just kind of a classic, and that was an edit together of all of the different daily end of day tour journals that I used to do. And that was back when I would record. I wasn't as confident about recording during a ride. And so the way that the tour journals ended up evolving into, where it's sort of like every few minutes or a few miles or whatever, if I have something to say, I say it now. Well, back then I did not do that. I would do it from the tent or in camp and would just, talk about things for a few minutes about how the day went, which was definitely a good way to do it in a lot of ways. But I missed a lot of detail. I missed a lot of the soundscape. And I wish, if I could do it all over again, if I could do that trip again, I wish I could have recorded more as things go. But, 10 years ago, I don't know what the capacity of my phone would have been to handle that much audio. I don't think it would have been big enough for the nearly month, no, more than a month. I think it was 6 weeks of riding. Can you imagine having, megabytes and megabytes of data every single day? That would certainly add up. Certainly this phone could handle it. That would be for sure. So yeah, the big ride, the Pacific Coast ride, the border to border tour, as I called it back in the day. That is my number one moment. And it's interesting, right? That 10 years, that my number one moment was really the thing that kind of sort of launched it all. And I sat with that for a little bit, thinking, nothing has surpassed that, at least as I sit here today. And but that's okay. I really kick things off with a big trip. I had a unique opportunity to be able to do it in that way, and there's going to be opportunities for trips like that in the future. So maybe number one gets unseated at some point. There's all sorts of different adventures that are kind of noodling around in my brain, and so I don't know, you don't have such a firm hold on number one there, border to border tour. You just never know. So, all right, let's see. More e-bike talk. I love it. I love it. I think that's it for the top 10 and for the honorable mention. So just a quick little overview here. I won't go through the honorable mention, but you know who you are. Number 10 was social distancing on the C&O. That was in April of 2020. Katy Trail in May of 2018 was number 9. E-bikes with Biking Brian, which clearly has caught a bunch of people's fancy. That was at number 8, maybe rising. That was, of course, last November. First Brompton tour back in 2016. Shifty the Elf, and of course, all the holiday specials, number 6. First bike ride into Disney World Resort in March of 2022 is number 5. DC to Cincinnati in the spring of 2019. That was number 4. Number 3, the Bike Touring Draft featuring the Sprocket Podcast, episode 207, June of 2020, and Mysterious James 3-pack, epic, January of 2020, the before times, before COVID. It was such a simpler time. And of course, number 1 here, the Pacific Coast Border to Border Tour, number 1. All right, cool. All right, let's see here. Next up. So my tour. This is the big tour reveal. We're going to spend the next 10 minutes or so roughly talking about that and kind of hanging out to close out our hour here. I put a lot of thought into this. I you if you thought, Tim, you're going to just do the Pacific Coast in its entirety again, I I can guarantee you I thought about that. It's just not on the cards. The work that I do is uh, has relevance to elections. It is an election year. There's no way I'm getting 6 weeks off. Just none, zero. So yeah, I was not able to repeat the full Pacific Coast tour. And then I found myself thinking about the summer and how it's going to get hot and how I hate the heat and the humidity in this part of the country. And of course, that's why I did my CNO ride earlier this year. And so, of course, the draw of the West Coast is definitely there for me. So I put a lot of thought into that, knowing full well that I can't do the ride that I really should slash would want to do. And I also didn't want to do just the same routes that I've been doing. But at the same time, the routes are awesome for a reason. And so I figured out something different. And so this ride is going to be the Oregon Coast Remix. And yes, thank you to AI for giving me yet another logo. What is this? What is this crazy ride that is going to be the 10th anniversary tour? Well, it is going to be along a familiar route. Of course, it's going to be the Oregon coast, as you would expect from the name there. And the ride is going to be from Lincoln City, Oregon to Crescent City, California. So, yes, a little teeny tiny piece of the California coast. There will be a couple of fast forwards in there. However, it's going to be a little bit different. The remix is definitely the thing that I'm leaning into here. Let's talk a little bit about gear. By the way, there's going to be a full-fledged preview episode for this, so don't worry about that. I'm not giving this short shrift. I just want to make sure that I'm giving the reveal in enough detail that it makes some sense. Going to be flying out the Safari for this particular trip. It was incredibly important to me that I ride that bike for the 10th anniversary trip because that was the bike, or at least most of the pieces of the bike that exist right now were still the ones that were part of the 2014 ride. I finally had to replace the twist shifts on that. Those things lasted for 12 years. I wouldn't say they lasted great because they were falling apart, but the shop just finally got back in touch with me. And so I have brand new shifters on the thing. It's going to be fun. A new inspired by the last ride, the CNO ride setup, which I think is going to be very interesting and exciting. We'll talk much more about that in the preview episode. But yeah, it's going to be the Safari. It's got to be for 10 years. That 80% of that bike is the same bike that I rode 10 years ago. So that's a very, very important thing. What makes this a remix? What makes it a remix is that I am not staying at any familiar campsites at all, um, except for one. And so, but that's just on the last night. The ride itself is going to take advantage of the hiker biker campsites at all of the remaining. Actually, I'm missing. I think there's maybe one that I would be missing, two actually that I didn't be missing. But at the end of this ride, I will have stayed at every single one of the hiker biker campsites on the Oregon coast. And what's exciting about this is that when you're going to be staying at different places, it completely reimagines the ride. And I think I really like that for one big reason. The ride's just very comfortable for me. I mean, the TikTok of that ride, I can almost do with my eyes closed. But now it's going to be really different. Where I ordinarily am used to getting food along the way, that might be the middle of the day, might be the end of the day. For instance, one of the days, as I'll talk about in the preview episode, and of course in the podcast itself, the Seven Devils is a big feature of the Oregon coast. It's normally the morning of a particular ride coming out of my least favorite campsite in the entire Oregon coast. That's not going to be the case this time. It's actually going to be at the end of the day for one of my rides, which may not be a great idea, but we're going to do it. So lots of different kind of setups. It is a sacrifice because you guys know how much I love certain campsites. South Beach State Park will not be staying there this time. A whole bunch of different things are going to be very, very different. And I think that it's going to make for a very different ride, a very different experience, a different relationship with some of the towns that frankly, I would just blow right through. Now they may become more important as a part of this ride. So the Oregon Coast Remix coming to you this summer on the pod. We are going to be doing the preview episode within the next couple of weeks, as soon as we wrap up all of our talk with the C&O but Slow, which still has to be completed. So take a look at that. One other thing I should say, you'll note that I ending Crescent City the last time that I finished a ride in that part of the area. I took a bus from Brookings to Medford to fly out. I'm still going to Medford to fly back home. However, the last time, as you may remember, I ended up just puking my guts out because the ride on those buses all the way to you don't go to Klamath Falls, but it's the route to Klamath Falls. It is an absolute puke buster. So I've decided that I'm going to rent a car from the Crescent City Airport. So no barfing in bus trash cans for me on this trip. I'm going to spend some more money to avoid all of that. But that you're going to have to learn a lot more about later on in the preview episode, and of course in the pod as we go along this summer. So let's see. Couple of other thoughts here as before we close out. Misha says that I should do the East Coast Greenway, but stay off of Georgia Route 17 from Key West to is it Calais? Is it Calais or Calais? I have no idea. I think it's Calais because if you're up that far in Maine, you got the French influence. I'm going to say Calais, but the East Coast Greenway is on my list. I have a very specific thought for how I'm going to do the East Coast Greenway. It is not ready yet. I'm not ready for it yet, but I will be, and more to come. More to come on all of that, but the East Coast Greenway is on my list and has been. Talk about somebody who should have made the honorable mention. And of course now I'm also forgetting her name. Joyce Chen, I believe, was on about the East Coast Greenway. What a fabulous guest. All of you who have been past guests, thank you so much for being on the show. You really helped make this. I can talk forever. I mean, I've been talking for 57 consecutive minutes here. I can talk, but it's always awesome to get other voices on the show. So thank you all for all of that. So Preston says that the East Coast Greenway is still about 50% roads. That is true. Which is fine. I really don't mind road riding. In fact, I kind of like road riding, and that's certainly been a piece of things. So maybe we can get rid of the. Oh wait, do I still have? There we go. I like road riding. I like doing all of that. It's a way of getting to know different communities. I like having our presence of bicycles being on the road. I like to declare that. The last episode of the show, you got to experience me with the coal rolling incident. And, at the time, I think I handled it very well. But I like to make sure that we're on the road because jokers like that don't get to dictate that we stay off of it. So, I'm not going to do anything unsafe. I'm not going to put myself in an unsafe situation, but, I want to ride on these roads. I want us to have presence on these roads. I would like more bike infrastructure. I would like separated bike infrastructure on these roads, but where it's not there, I'll take a shoulder. I'm cool with all of that. So, all right, everybody. I really, let's see. I'm going to give another shout out to my nephew, by the way, Miraculous Silver Slipper. Go check out his channel. It is about a animated series called Miraculous, and my nephew has created his own character, Silver Slipper. Check him out. And let's see. Nick also says, really enjoyed your previous trips on the West Coast. I was so far west. I was on the West Coast. Great choice of doing a portion in the Oregon parks along the coast. I agree, are fabulous. I just totally agree. I just am so enamored with what Washington, California, and especially Oregon do for cycling along the Pacific Coast route. They do such a tremendous job. It's such a comfortable way of experiencing all of those things. You see such amazing things. The Avenue of the Giants in California, Devil's Punch Bowl in Oregon, cycling through some of the tribal lands in Washington State. just really fantastic stuff. You see such amazing things. And, I guess it all comes back to, why do I keep doing this after 10 years? And I think that the answer is pretty clear to me. It's that you get to experience some of the greatest places at the speed of bike. And that, to me, you just can't beat that. You really just can't beat that. So that's why I keep doing this. And because all of you keep hanging out. And so grateful for all of you to be here hanging out with me today, celebrating the 10 years. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I know many of you go all the way back to the beginning. For those of you who've only been around for a little bit, you got a bunch of back episodes, many of which are still somewhat listenable. Yeah, it's just been a real pleasure and a real privilege to do the show for you. And I don't know if I got another 10 years. Maybe I got more. Who knows? But I definitely am enjoying the show, and I'm really enjoying bringing the tours to you. So really excited. We'll just bring out that logo there. The Oregon Coast Remix will be the next tour for you all. So thank you so much. We are going to be putting this on the feed for this next upcoming week. Then, of course, we're going to wrap up the Cianova Slow, and then back to the Pacific Coast for the next tour. So thanks so much for joining, everybody. Hope you have a great night or morning to you down under. Thanks so much, and have a great time. And thanks again for helping to celebrate a decade of Pedal Shift with me. Take care, everyone.